Hello, I am Box Devine, your Dean of Acting here at TDR Charm School. Now, one of the things every TDR girl has ever done is audition. So that's what we're going to be covering today. I have some tips and tricks to help elevate your auditions and make you seem more polished and ready for TDR. Now, our tip number one is lighting. Now, the best thing is to have a well-lit room. Specifically, one of the easiest ways to do that is to place a light in front of you so you have forward-facing light that really illuminates your face so we can see all the detail you've put into everything. So I'm going to turn on a light. As well with the light helps soften you and give you a nice glow. So make sure you have good lighting when you do your video. Now the second part of auditioning, and my second tip, is focus. Now, your camera, or my camera in this instance, is set up right here. So if I'm talking like this throughout my entire audition, it gets very awkward. I might have a friend over here who's reading the questions off to me off camera, but it gets really awkward when you just don't acknowledge the camera's even there. There might be people in the room with you. Ignore them! Focus on the camera. Have a conversation with the camera. The camera is your friend. Your camera is your casting director, so just sit down and talk to the camera. Tip number 3 is costuming. You learned all about costuming last week, and the major part of answering your questions for an audition is from the waist up. You might do a different costume for your runway if you want to show versatility or for your monologue, but when you're sitting down and answering your questions, make sure you really focus from the waist up. Accessorize a little necklace, maybe some earrings, a head accessory, nails or gloves. All these little tiny details really push things over the top. So think from the waist up and show us who you are when you're auditioning because we want to see you, which is why you turned your light on and spoke to the camera. We're moving on to tip number 4, your hair. One of the most annoying things in audition is a girl who has put on her wig and won't stop doing this. We get it, wigs get in the way, but if you're sitting down and trying to show us how polished you are, spray that motherfucker down. Just a little bobby pin, hide it off to the side. Get your hair out of your face so we can really see you. And it gets extremely distracting if you keep... So, get your hair right out of your face and keep talking to that camera. Tip number 5. It's a 3-letter word. UMM. Now, it's an automatic reflex, and there's no way that you're going to get rid of every single one, but it's a really good thing to focus on is not having as a segue. We do understand that there's a lot of things that you need to spit out, but getting rid of as much as possible really just brings a heightened level of looking like you know what you're doing. So if you're sitting here and your questions come up and in between each one you just, well, my name is, or when you've got your 3 facts about yourself, in between each fact, hearing, while you're trying to think of it, really puts a damper on how polished and ready you look. Which is actually a major part of our next part, which is knowing your questions. There are a few tips on answering your questions, and the major point of answering your questions is knowing what they are. Now, this could be that you memorize them beforehand. You can do what I'm doing, and on my screen, because I'm filming on a laptop, is the questions right next to the photo booth camera. So I can actually glance over and read them and it still looks like I'm talking to the camera. A way to do this without a laptop is to make a cue card and place it behind the camera. You can also have a friend read you off to them and you can splice the questions together, but then it gets a little staccato, so you kind of want to just keep this free-flowing talk because it just seems like you know what you're doing more if you can just keep talking. Now, one of the other major things with talking is talking too much. Now, I am someone who talks a lot. Clearly, I've been talking for the last 5 minutes almost. But one of the major things is that if we give you a 5-minute time limit, you do not need to have your video be 5 minutes long for your answering section. So if we give you 7 questions in 5 minutes, do not think that you have to spend 5 minutes really going into detail about every little thing about your life. Give us the good hits of you. And the opposite end of that spectrum is don't just Hi, my name is Boxify. I'm 25 years old. My TDR URL is this. I'm a Pisces. Don't just spit it out. Sit down and go through the questions at your pace. So, just because we give you 5 minutes doesn't mean you need to use all of it. But if yours is 5 minutes long and it's entertaining, that's good. So know yourself and know the time limit. If it seems to get boring as you're rewatching it, cut some out. Because one of the best things about auditioning is you get to sit down, film it, and then go back to it. This is not a live audition. You can sit down, edit in, and edit out. Now, I really do like the auditions where it's one just full shot, so that's what I'm going to ask you this week as we go over your homework right now. I'm going to have a written post with a list of questions I would like you to answer about yourself. Now, there is a couple different ways of doing this. You can do that splice together, but there's also the way of just talking straight through the questions. These are not going to be hard questions. They're going to be the basic ones. And make sure that you are lit. You talk to your camera. Costuming is not required, but make sure you put on, a nice look, even if you're doing this just as a boy, brush your hair a little bit, put a nice t-shirt on, however you want to be seen, but do think about what you're wearing. Make sure your hair is out of your face if you're in drag or out. I don't want to see this the whole time. Avoid the word as much as possible. Know the questions. Again, either memorize them, have them on the screen with you, or have a cue card behind you. One of the worst things that you can do is just absolutely having no idea what you're doing. Mind the time limit, and remember that if you want to talk for a long time, be entertaining. But don't just spit the answers out. So give us a nice happy medium of answering all the questions, being entertaining, and not going on too long for your own personal self. So that's what this homework is. The written post will be up shortly after this video is up, and you will get your list of questions. You have a couple days to work on this, and if you do have the time to get in full drag, it would be greatly appreciated, but you will not be graded on it. So, take all these tips and tricks in, take the written post and keep going over them, and send us your audition.